Republican response. I'm joined by Senator John McCain here in the studio as well. Thanks for coming in this morning, Senator.
Thanks for having me, George. This tweet business is...
Well, you're on Twitter, aren't you?
We have 1.4 million followers, and we hear from a lot of people who are not exactly fans.
I'm sure of that. Listen, I want to start
a lot of fun
by showing a little bit more of the chamber last night, a little bit more of the unusual seating arrangements. There you are.
With Kerry and Tom Udall and Joe Lieberman, two Democrats and an independent.
All mixed up there, which made for quite a different feeling in the chamber, right?
It did. It really did. It was a much different feeling, and one of the things a lot of us have resented over the years is this constant jumping up and down, because it interrupts the theme of the president's speech. I think it was very helpful, the president's speech last night, that it was less than usual and certainly not as partisan as it used to be. It used to be kind of a cheerlead, still is, but it's been reduced, this kind of cheerleading kind of thing.
Do you think this is going to stick?
I hope so. I think that there's a different atmosphere here. With every tragedy comes something good, and obviously the tragedy of Tucson and Gabrielle Giffords has brought about a certain change in the atmosphere.
Let's get to the policies. Sure. You did jump up last night when the president said he would veto any bill that had earmarks in it.
I was so pleased, and I also hope we'll work on enhanced rescissions. You know, there's a number of things the president said last night that we've been talking about for a long time, reducing the corporate tax rate, vetoing pork barrel spending, medical malpractice reform. I can't tell you how many times we tried that during the health care debate, free trade agreements with Colombia and Panama as well as Korea. So there was a number of areas that the president has clearly shifted his position
And you think,
on.
which of those can you make progress on this year?
I really think that on the issue of free trade, we can move those agreements through. I think that we will be revisiting health care, and medical malpractice reform is one of the key areas. There's a number of areas. So I think that we probably, I think the real crunch, as you've commented before on the show, is probably when we raise the debt limit or address the debt limit issue. That's where most of these things are really
and the clash on that was really set up last night between the president and Congressman Ryan. What are Republicans going to demand in return for increasing that debt limit?
Way to get back down to at least 2008 spending. Some of us would like to see us go down to 2006. Between the last 2 years, discretionary spending went up some 80% if you count the stimulus package as well. We've got to get the spending level down. There's got to be some kind of absolute ironclad path to getting that
But as the president pointed out last night, started to point out last night, getting down to those 2008 levels could lead to cuts of up to 30% in programs like education, infrastructure, research. Are you willing to go that far?
Yes, and I'm also willing to take up sooner rather than later entitlement reform. Look, you and I could do Social Security reform on the back of an envelope. Medicare reform is much, much more difficult. But we really need to sit down and work. When we recognize those kind of cuts that are going to have to be made, I hope that drives us towards entitlement reform.
That's very similar to what the president said last night. He said he wants to strengthen Social Security, but neither side coming out with the specifics on what it's going to take. And is it truly realistic to think that's going to get done this year?
1983, Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill sat down together, came up with very tough medicine, walked out together and said, we're going to fix Social Security. We can do that if it's done on a bipartisan basis. But it has to be done first, get the agreement, then go out and present it to the American people. Medicare reform, which is the biggest elephant in the room, that's going to be even tougher.
And of course, your home state of Arizona on everyone's mind last night in that chamber. That empty seat for Gabby Giffords was so poignant. You heard the news that overnight her condition was upgraded from serious to good.
It's wonderful news, and it's an incredible story, and thanks to the medical care you're going to have people on from Tucson Medical Center. It's an incredible story, and we're very grateful in Arizona for what the president said when he came to Tucson and the outpouring on the part of all Americans' behalf, not only on Gabrielle Giffords, but Judge Roll, who sacrificed his life, Christine Taylor Greene, and all of the others. We're very grateful.
Okay, Senator McCain, thanks for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me on.
And for more on the Congressman, let's go back up to Robin in New York.
Well, just as you and the Senator just said, the President and congressional colleagues pay that tribute to Gabby